Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. Just wanted to step in here before we start the actual interview and let everybody know that when we recorded this live, we had a lot of internet issues that night. We actually restarted the interview 3 different times trying to keep it going that night before we finally called it quits, and then 2 days later wrapped up the interview. So there are points where it's a little disjointed, but I edited it together, and I hope you enjoy. Here we go. Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is Weekly Scrap number 132. My guest this evening is Chief David Rhodes. He is a 37-year fire service veteran, retired from Atlanta Fire Department. He is a chief elder for the Georgia Smoke Diver Program. You want to talk about FDIC Advisory Board, Executive Advisory Board, hands-on training coordinator, editorial advisor at Fire Engineering Magazine, Fire Apparatus Equipment Magazine, author of the Hump Day SOS, column for Fire Rescue Magazine. He instructs, he teaches, he speaks across the country, ULFSRI member, excuse me, I gotta sneeze, Firefighter Air Coalition member. He is president, pardon me, he is president of Rhodes Consultants. And believe me, I could sit here and keep reading on and on, but the man's career and pedigree is unbelievable. And most importantly, so many people who I respect and look up to speak about this man with reverence and respect, which is the greatest resume that I think you can have. So Chief David Rhodes, it is my pleasure to have you as a guest for episode number 132 of The Scrap.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man. I've been looking forward to it for a couple of months now.
It's going to be a good time, man. I'm very excited. Is there anything I missed in the intro? Anything you would like to add?
No, other than it's tough getting old. It is past my bedtime, but I'm willing to stay up till midnight if that's what it takes to get all the questions answered.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I took a nap before the show, so I should be good.
I love it. And we've got people already chiming in. Bo Vest said, Smoke Daddy. Richard Bew said, good evening, COD. Dustin Martinez said, yes. So much. Yeah, Robbie Townsend said, smoke. There's so many people saying Smoke Daddy. Yeah. Cheers from Old Town Fools, Southern California. So many people chiming in right now. I am hiding a lot of spam that is coming at you. Nothing to do with you, just to do with I got to figure out how to handle people 100%, man. And someone said, Justin Fraze said, sweet hat.
Exit through the gift shop.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Okay. If you have questions, audience, please get your questions ready and primed for Chief David Rhodes. If you find value in the scrap and you want to keep it going, go to firehousevigilance.com, support it. I don't ever want to read ad copy here, so I don't ever want to do it live. Kyle Romagus, Chief Kyle Romagus, is the curator of the questions. When you post questions, he's going to pull them out. He's going to throw them on my laptop so I can find them and throw it at... hold on one second.
Tell him not to call any of the golf questions.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And other than that, he is the producer. I say he's the unofficial producer of the scrap. So I wanted to lead off right out the gate. Number one, I did a lot of research as you were coming on, and I wanted to talk to you about a lot of things. And of course, the audience is going to throw a ton at you. So what I wanted to ask you is this, right out the gate. I read The Fire Science for Dummies. And one of the things about that, anybody could have written an article called Fire Science for Dummies. Anybody could have done it. But you said it's fire science for dummies like me. And brother, that just the name of it shows the humility associated with getting that message out. And I wanted to point that out. And there's some quotes I wanted to bring out from it. So the first one I said, judging other departments' tactics without understanding the differences in construction, hazards, and resources needed is a mistake. So I just wanted to just throw that at you and start talking right there.
Yeah. So I got introduced to the UL ventilation study. It was the horizontal ventilation study when Steve Kerber came to Atlanta and did a class. I had already read the study when it was released. And there was a local department that immediately changed their tactics and said that they would no longer ventilate. And of course, that drove me nuts. But I sat through Steve's class. It was a phenomenal class. And but being an Atlanta urban firefighter, and my best times on the department were tillering on a truck, and I got to do a lot of roof ventilation and stuff. And so naturally, I felt that that roof ventilation was the secret to all successful fire operations. So I asked him when the vertical ventilation study was going to be done. He invited me on to the panel, and I got up there and sat in the room with 30 firefighters from around the country. And as we went around the room and sort of went over our practices and stuff, I was floored at the departments that did not get on roofs for various reasons. I immediately thought, oh, well, they got way too over safety conscious or whatever and all. But then talking to them at break, you start realizing, with New York and residential roofs, the roofs are super steep because of the snow. So the roofs that New York firefighters would not get on are the same roofs that we wouldn't get on in Atlanta. Maybe they're slate or terracotta. The Phoenix guys were, talking about their clay roofs and stuff. So it kind of opened my eyes a little bit that, all just like politics, all firefighting is local. And
beautiful.
And then as we completed the vertical ventilation study, it was super, super eye-opening to me. Some of the things that I learned that I just thought I was the biggest dummy in the world. And specifically, the biggest one was I had taught vent enter search since probably 1986 or so, and it had been a tactic that was taught in smoke divers. It had been a tactic we taught in our basic firefighter training at the state and all. So as we got into the ventilation and started talking about opening the front door being ventilation and that let air in, well, that had never connected in my brain because I was never taught. I was taught vent, take the window, enter, search, shut the door, block the airflow. We didn't know what flow path was back then, but
right.
it was convection currents to us. But all that clicked because it was in context. But opening the front door never clicked to me that it was ventilation. And I was like, here I was a battalion chief commanding, fires. And I'm like, holy crap. How dumb can you be not to put those pieces together? But it just took that to put it in context. And then, of course, I went from there. But that was probably the biggest humbling experience to think that, I didn't even consider that. And then I went further to explain, Atlanta tactics and stuff. And what I found out is accidentally we were doing things right. We had coordinated fire attack, and it was strictly because of our staffing levels. And, we sent our trucks are real trucks, and they search and no water on them. It's strictly search, overhaul, ventilation, that type of work. And so we were always sending a truck crew to the roof, and there was always an engine company or two taking a line in. And just for sheer because we had the staffing, it worked out to where it was always coordinated. And I had made the statement to Kerber that I had personally never been on a scene and lost a structure that had a hole cut in the roof. And that was true. But I absolutely gave the hose line no credit
right.
because I was on the roof cutting the hole. I thought I was me and the crew were the ones that were saving the day. So I learned that we were accidentally doing things right. So the other thing we would do is pile enough people in front of the door that we would cut off the oxygen.
Just shut the flow path down with bodies? Yeah.
We didn't need door control because there was always at least 7 people standing in the door that was blocking the air. So we never had any issues with that either.
Beautiful.
So, but yeah, it was pretty humbling. It's a very humbling experience to hear from those people all over the country and realize, hey, your little corner of the world is your tactics, your deal. And, if you pull up and you got, if you're by yourself or you have 2 people, and you knock that fire down from outside and can render it to where you can go, take it from free burning to incipient or whatever, then man, there's no harm in that. You do what you have to do based on the resources you have. And so that was another thing. Not everybody is Atlanta or LA or a big urban department with staffing, and all of those departments have their own problems too. But the majority of the fire service is running 2 and 3 person, companies, and some one. So you got to do what you have to do.
Beautiful. The next quote I want to throw at you, which is right, it's the following sentence after the same one you wrote in that first episode 1 of that Fire Science for Dummies Like Me. There is no one magic tactic that works in every situation. Right? That's your quote. And then in parentheses at the end, you said, except water. And I love that, man. I absolutely love that. So I'll give you a minute to preach on that if you want.
Yeah. So again, back, I remember vividly as a firefighter at Station 2 in Atlanta. And when I say we were taught to never, ever, under any circumstances, attack the fire from the burning side. You always went from the unburned side to the burned side to push the fire, back onto itself or what have you.
Right.
And I heard this from all of my mentors and stuff back, from 85 all the way up, through the 90s and stuff. And so as much as we could, we tried to do that. But it's one particular fire, pretty tight little neighborhood, probably less than 10 feet in between houses.
Okay.
And the front is just absolutely rocking and rolling. Fire is blowing out the front porch, 10, 15 feet into the air. So I'm driving that day. I was driving the engine, and we had pulled just past, and the guys start stretching the skid load down between the houses. And it's about, the houses are probably about 60 feet deep on the lots. There's usually a little 4-foot chain link fence at the very back that's locked with a padlock. They have to climb over the fence. There's a couple pit bulls chained in the backyard.
Right.
They go on to the back porch, which is the most heavily fortified door in the house. And so while they're stretching and I'm waiting on them to tell me to charge the line, I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. I am absolutely going nuts because this fire is just raging. And so in just a moment of just sheer break all the rules and all, I pulled a line off and hit the fire. And I was the only one in the front yard. I was the only one on the street. I was pumping the truck, and the other units hadn't got there yet. So I probably didn't flow 100 gallons and knocked 90% of the fire out. And then I immediately started saying, oh my God, what have I done? I have screwed up now. I have probably burned them up, or I've pushed fire through the house. Well, they're not even in there because I haven't even charged their line yet. And about the time I knocked it down, they said, charge the line. They came through. I picked up my line, widened it up, and threw it in a compartment so nobody could see it as the other units were arriving, just knowing if anybody ever found out I was going to be written up, and tormented and stuff. So as the guys finished, they came out and stuff. I'm like, so how bad was it in there? Is the whole structure burned up? And they were like, no, it's just the front room, and I'm like, just the front room? And they're like, yeah. So I end up going in, and there's absolutely no fire damage anywhere in the house, except the front room is totally burnt out. And then all the fire was venting out the window, which caught the exterior and the porch on fire and all that stuff. So I called up, after we got back. Still, mom was a word. We didn't talk about it. Right. I never told anybody. So I called up one of the guys who trained me from my old department, Conyers. I called old Joel Yoder, who was, one of my mentors there and trainers. And I told him what happened. And I said, so what do you think? And he goes, man, he goes, the modern nozzles flow so much water. He said, you really don't have to worry about which side you're coming in for the most part. He goes, if you got something like that, he goes, man, you can knock all that exterior fire down and it's no issue at all. The fire's gonna go out if you get the water on it. Now, obviously, you know, there's search concerns and we want to get in there as fast as we can. Right. But back to that old, you know, comparison. If you're there by yourself or you don't have, you know, a crew, then put water on it. Water makes it all better, you know. And I mean, you need to put it on correctly. You need to be, you know, with a straight or a solid stream with very little nozzle movement so that you're not pushing air in, and you definitely don't want to open a fog nozzle up and that's the same as turning a fan on.
Just kick a fan,
you know, from outside. But I think back to another incident where a Georgia firefighter was killed in the line of duty. Super knowledgeable instructor and all, and you know, talking to some of the guys on the scene, they were afraid to flow water, you know, after the collapse occurred because of, you know, I mean, it was just drilled in our head that we did not do that. And, wow. And you know, I'm not saying you should do it every single time or anything. Right. That's definitely not it. But, you know, if that's all you got, that's all you got. And water's going to make things better 99.9% of the time. But you can't just stop there. A lot of these folks have totally misinterpreted some of the studies. And one of my favorite lines is the biggest problem with a transitional attack is the failure to transition. So if all you do is hit it hard from the yard and that's it, then that's not really a tactic unless you're totally in a defensive mode. Right. But you know, if you're going to start, everybody has knocked fire back into the structure from the front door. If it was blowing out the front door, and you just keep moving, to the fire. You don't stop. So
beautiful.
That's where that came from.
Let me see what else I pulled out. And I love this. This was, I think, from might be episode 3 or part 3 of the Fire Science for Dummies, Like Me, that you wrote, which is, we all know that there are some among us who have never wanted to go inside a burning building. Did science hand them the shield they have been looking for? I don't think so. Not if you use some common sense, have an agenda that puts the victim first, know your job, function confidently in a highly complex risk-managed attack. The best risk management is competence, not avoidance. So yeah. I wanted to throw that at you.
Yeah. You know, a lot of departments, mainly their administrations, jumped all over the parts of some of the research that they, you know, I guess they were looking for a confirmation bias and something, and that, you know, there's a lot of policies out there across the country. Is like, we will not go interior on a vacant building. Well, how do you know it's vacant? Right. I hate the term vacant building. And of course, being in an urban environment, for 30 years of my career, there were rarely vacant buildings. There was usually somebody in there. Now, they might not have supposed to have been in there, but there were, you know, usually either homeless or somebody in there messing around that shouldn't have been in there. But there has to be a distinction between a derelict building that is rotten, that is a danger to be in when it's not on fire, versus just a vacant structure. So, I mean, a vacant structure could be a house for sale. A lot of urban departments have a vacant problem. So you got to be on top of that and know which ones are rotten, and even the rotten ones. You know, if you see somebody, you're going to at least try to do what you can to get them out. I'm not saying you wouldn't go in it, but circumstances dictate. So I hate to see those policies that handcuff the crews that, you know, say we won't fight fire interior on a vacant building because, you're taking decision making out of their hands. And my thing is train them to make good decisions. And if you teach them the fire science, you teach them fire behavior, you teach them building construction, you teach them tactics, and you train and they're proficient with their equipment, that will allow you to safely operate and be the most aggressive firefighter there is out there.
Beautiful.
You don't want to be you don't want to be dumb aggressive where, you got fire blowing out a window, you throw the nozzle in the window, then climb in the window and then open the nozzle. But you just got to use some common sense and get in there. Definitely put the victim first. You can't find a victim. You're not going to find a victim outside. 99 times out of 100, they might have jumped out a window, or in one case, I had jumped in a swimming pool while they were on fire. But you got to get in there, and if you're taking an attack line and you're moving in, you might accidentally run over a victim. Not even trying to search. You're just advancing the hose to the fire. There's a good chance that you're in the main path of egress, and there may be a victim right there at the front door or the side door or whatever that main path of egress is. So you always got to be searching, no matter what you're doing.
1,000%.
We call the hose line the boat anchor because you can't move very fast, but it can be done. Again, you gotta adapt your tactics to the staffing and resources you have.
Tons of comments coming at you. I'm just going to pick some highlights. I'm going to scroll through. There's been like 100 comments come out while you were preaching, and there's a boom from Smoothbore Cartel. Wet stuff on the red stuff. That's the basics. Josh Folk said it. Greg Wyant said water wins, and he said 15/16. I'm guessing he's saying that's a ratio of how many times it wins, or he's saying the smoothbore. But anyway, that's a joke. I'm sorry. Ryan,
it's probably.
Ryan King said flow early, flow often. I'm just throwing Robbie Townsend chiming in. Amens, facts. Dustin Martinez says those who want to find reasons to stay outside will find them, and he's 100% correct in that. That's what we're talking about. Brian Matson said the building is a derelict structure. It's not vacant until we clear it and after we exit. I love this one. Dustin again. Sorry, Dustin, I'm picking on you. Too many look for protocol-based decision-making to avoid actual thinking. And I think that's a huge thing we can talk about. So trying to throw a lot at you. And there's some people that threw in some other ratios like a 7/8. I'm not sure if they're what they're saying, but no. Coming at you from Kyle Romans, I got the first question from the audience, which is from Smoothbore Cartel himself. He said, Chief, if you could roll back time and rewrite any of the UL studies, what would you change? Or are there any topics that have not been covered in the studies that you would like to see covered?
So I don't think I would change any of the studies themselves. I think early on, like back to the horizontal ventilation and the vertical ventilation, UL was like 2 or 3 people. And they were all, they were doing everything. So they were designing the experiments. Of course, we had the panels, but I think what happened in the beginning is getting the information out there, and the studies were put out there, but UL didn't have the staff to really control the narrative of it. So all these different people took pieces and started their own interpretation, and it went crazy, and it created a couple. It definitely split factions, and there were people that were just raging mad, and they would have killed a UL scientist if they had have seen one. Out there, they didn't give them any credit for. All of them were in the fire service, and I actually did a meme about them, and it had it was a stagecoach, and inside it, on the side of the stagecoach, it said UL, had the UL label on it.
Right.
And there were arrows, there were Indian arrows all in the side of it, like they were under attack in the Old West.
Right.
And inside was Dan Madrikowski looking out and Kerber, and it was actually photoshopped pictures of them. And it said, "The pioneers always take the arrows." And so, they were getting blasted. These little guys with those little pencils aren't going to tell me how to fight fire. And, there was legitimacy in some of the arguments. I mean, the best thing for science is for somebody to question it and make you study further. And I think one of my science for dummies was, what was it? The shot heard around the world, right. And it was about pushing fire.
Right.
And, I did a whole interview with Dan Madrikowski about pushing fire and where it came from. And he showed me the slide and all, and it was like, well, you said you could, then you couldn't, and back. And so, yeah, there was some bad communication on a couple of things. That was probably the worst that got out there. But, man, you fast forward 5-6 years, and now the staff is like 15 or 20 at UL. They have professional educators writing curriculum and doing the training, and you don't have that emotion in it anymore because it's really not a threat. It's information. And, one of the things that being on the board, I always say is we as UL research need to present information versus telling people how to do things. So instead of telling you this is the best tactic to use, we need to say, here's all the tactics we tested, here's how they turned out, and you use what works best for you. And I think that's pretty much been the message. There have been a few folks out there that kind of got a little rogue, and I always say, here we go. This guy wants to be famous, so he's going to latch on to this piece and create his own, message and stuff. And so there were a lot of people out there piggybacking off of pieces of information. But that was probably the biggest mistake, was just the rollout of information. And it was a double-edged sword. Do you get the information out quick because, hey, look, here's what we found out, or do you get it out in a way that is a training class that can be downloaded or whatever? And it took years to get to that point. And kudos to UL for putting the resources in. It's a nonprofit on the fire research side, and of course they get grants, but the UL corporate puts in a lot of money into the FSRI to make it work.
Beautiful, brother. Great answers. I will get to I want to ask questions, but I got a lot of right now. Cody Mark Landers wants to know if you're willing for a hard question here, or not an easy.
Can't be too hard.
In your opinion,
let me say.
Go ahead.
Let me say too, on studies that like to see, or
okay,
actually I'm highly involved in one right now, which is training fire loads, the fuel for training fires.
Yes.
And we're doing a lot of experiments, a lot of stuff we do at smoke divers, we're sending up to look at. But, there's a huge challenge in training of creating a realistic fire environment.
Absolutely.
Too often we've, set three or four pallets on fire. We bring the nozzle team in, they open the nozzle, and the instructor goes, "Shut it off, don't put my fire out."
Right.
Well, you're supposed to be learning how to put fire out, so you need to see the behavior. And of course the building doesn't, it's very hard to get a burn building vent limited because of all the openings and stuff. So we're working on a lot of stuff to figure out what's the best fuel to use, taking into consideration all the risk, the exposures, the cancers, anything that ends in a zine, any chemical that has a zine at the end of it, or E&E is something that we're looking at, but we'll never be able to eliminate all risk.
Right.
And so what we're looking at is, how do you stair step this thing? People laughed at Bullex when they came out with that digital fire panel. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've seen, hit it with a nozzle and it reacts.
Heavy duty. Yeah, it's a heavy duty looking little thing. And if you just turn it on in a room with no smoke, then you look at it, you're like, get out of here. But you smoke the room up, and that flicker of light looks tremendous. I mean, it looks great. You hear the crackle and all that. I use it in initial training stuff, and logistically with a recruit class. It's their first time searching. Give them the visual cues without the exposure. But eventually, you got to get to live fire. You got to get to burning things that create gases and create heat and create smoke. And but how you don't have to do that every time. So you can stair step your training into those live fire evolutions. You don't have to have the recruit and hay smoke, the very first time they're in a breathing apparatus. So that's some of the recommendations and stuff that we're working on now. And really the fuel load is huge, because everybody knows the OSB thing is a big deal. And just let me say the importance of research. This was just something that was phenomenal. California was required to, they could only use formaldehyde-free OSB. So they were importing it from Canada. It cost twice as much. And so we took the formaldehyde-free OSB in the lab and burned it and compared it to the regular OSB. And the formaldehyde-free OSB puts off more formaldehyde when it's burning than the regular OSB. Right. So don't jump on a cause before you have all the information. You need to know. The reason it's called formaldehyde-free is because it doesn't off-gas in your house like the other. So it does what it's intended to do.
Okay. Just not under burning conditions.
It actually puts off more.
Right.
Right. It wasn't formaldehyde-free for fire training. It was formaldehyde-free for building construction.
Wow. No,
that's
amazing.
When you burn it put off more formaldehyde. So that's that right. Just that right there is the value of research. So I think it was Corey had a question. Who was it?
Cody.
You were going to give me a hard question. Cody.
No, I'm not.
All right. Sorry, Cody.
It's not a soft toss. In your opinion, what is the best way to get a department to change their outlook? If a homeowner says the building is vacant, it's vacant. How can we get them to adopt a "it's not clear till we say it's clear" mentality?
And that's how to get the department.
Yeah, just the department,
adopt that.
The department mindset.
Well, through training. I mean, this rescue project that Brian Brush is putting together is a tremendous help for that. I went to an incident command briefing in Savannah, Georgia, before hurricane season, or before a hurricane was supposed to come in. And the guy, the commander for the Coast Guard for that region, got up and did a presentation. And it's the first thing out of his mouth after he introduced himself was a report of how many people had been rescued by the Coast Guard in that district in the last 12 months, how many vessels had been saved. And then, of course, it went into the law enforcement side on how many seizures and all that stuff. And I said, man, how come the fire service, even at a local level, but definitely at a national level, how come we can't say how many people were rescued in fires? We know how many people died in fires, but how many people were rescued? And if you subscribe to those emails or you follow the Facebook page, heck, I get 3 or 4 notifications of people rescued every day.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I'm sure Brian, if he's out there, can tell me the actual number. He's done a phenomenal report on it. But why is that not captured in our reporting system? I mean, our national reporting system is way, way, way behind what we need to actually sell ourselves and I know they're working on it with some of the new stuff, and hopefully we'll get everybody on board with the new reporting stuff. But the key is, show your department that information of how many people were rescued, and I don't know what size department you're with there, Cody, but there's definitely information out there. I can tell you that in my 36 years of active duty, it was very rare that someone was rescued in an occupied structure. The majority of the rescues that I recall being a part of were vacant apartments, vacant houses, vacant buildings and stuff. And of course, it just depends on your territory.
And you touched on it beautifully. We have to, and they're starting to do it. And that's Brian's whole point with his doctorate was we have to start recording our wins. And so we have to document them. We're so good at tracking our losses.
Well, and we do it, on the EMS side, we do pretty good with like CPR saves, cardiac saves and stuff. I won't say we're great at it, but we can pull those numbers quicker than we can because there's nowhere on the report that says how many lives were saved, No,
100%. All right, next question coming at you. This one's coming at you from Shane Bentley, right down there in your neck of the woods. I'm trying to get that to go away. Go away. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Chief,
hey, Shane.
How do you counteract all the people that are in higher power or the so-called decision makers that look for reasons to politically remove the ones that care about aggressively training to be the best you can be?
Yeah, I found out over the years it's true in any organization. Those people that stand out, that put it out there, put it all on the line, they really have heart and soul, their passions into it. You're, even though you don't want to be, you're a threat because your passion, your competence, you are exposing incompetence without even trying to. You're working hard and you're doing things and you're accomplishing things. And when you do that, you're going to get shot at, and people are going to attack you. And you got to have thick skin. You just got to keep moving forward, doing what you're doing. Sometimes you got to back up and realize you can't change the whole organization, but you can control what's in your four walls. Concentrate on your company. And my biggest advice to folks, and folks struggle with this all the time, is when you feel like, absolute crap, you're down on your department or whatever, instead of sitting there and throwing a pity party, get up and do something for somebody else. Go hold another training class. Go, read a book. I had this exact conversation with Alan Brunacini years ago, and he started grinning and he said, they came after me too when he was coming up through the ranks. And he said that he got banished to some horrible assignment, and I can't remember which station it was or whatever. And he said, so while I was there, I wrote Incident Command.
Oh, wow.
The book. So, I wrote about it and Pass It On 3. I got a little chapter called Surviving Bad Leadership, which I think we're going to get into a little bit later. But, I kind of turned it into a game, man. I'm like, I'm going to eat your soul because you're not gonna destroy my passion for the job. Maybe I got to take my passion somewhere else. Maybe I got to be involved in smoke divers or FDIC or my own little training conference or whatever. Everybody needs an outlet, and those who are into servant leadership and want to pass things on, you got to have that outlet. So at worst, look outside your department to fulfill those needs. But if you can, then do what you can for the guy working beside you today. And maybe that's all you can do, but that's awesome. You can't change it overnight. But I look back at all the struggles I had in Atlanta, and a lot of the people that I trained are chiefs, and some of them that were my rookies are are already promoted higher than I ever went. They're assistant chiefs or deputy chiefs. So, just do what you can and keep rolling. Don't give up.
Beautiful answer. And I want to tell everybody, thank you guys for jumping back in. It's never happened before in the history of the scrap where it just crashed. It crashed and the phone crashed. That's always been my backup, is the phone. So it's weird for just both of them to die at once. I don't know what's going on. We'll blame COVID because that's what everybody seems to do, is just say, hey, it's going to be 8 weeks till you can get something. Just blame COVID. So all that being said, we're going to try and fight through it. There is still issues. There's still some audio and freezes. But if it keeps on working, if it gets to the point where it's unwatchable, we'll call it a night. But right now, we're powering through. So I want to throw this one at you because it ties right into the next article I researched on you, which is the T-shirt management. And Mike Galliano earlier, before the crash, said, "Hey, Rhodesy, love you, my man. Please explain why T-shirts are a priority over such silly things as leadership, fireground decision-making, and tactical proficiency."
Yeah. So years ago, I don't even know how many now. It was probably around 2014. Somebody sent me a link to a video of a couple of guys in, I think it was Montgomery, Alabama. And they had a little spoof video. A couple of guys were singing. Have you seen it? It's a couple of guys are singing. It's still out there. And they were dressed up like the Soggy Bottom Boys,
right,
off of Brother Where Art Thou. And the guy could actually sing really well. The guy could actually sing really well. He sounded just like him. The acoustics in the Bay were wonderful. And they got to this. It was all about their chief and different things. And they had a pile of T-shirts. I mean, it was a mountain. And one of the lines, I can't remember how it fit in, but it was perfect. And he says, "Shirts, which one holding up?" This was, they were holding up this shirt and they would throw it.
Say the line.
Hands,
say
and
the
then
line.
Pull up another one.
Say the line one more time. The T-shirt line. Sorry, it spazzed out.
Oh, it was. Yeah, he said so many shirts, don't know which one to wear.
Nice.
And like the chief had changed the logo and they were all getting in trouble and all. So I kind of kept that in the back of my mind, and just hearing stories from teaching around and stuff sort of inspired the article T-shirt management, which was, it got me in a lot of trouble, even though I did not ever once write an article where I identified where I worked. And the article was actually had nothing to do with my organization. It was the fire department in general. But so many people would talk about how, their chiefs were so worried about them wearing the wrong T-shirt. They would have a company T-shirt or whatever. So if you actually read the article is equally critical of firefighters as it is of the administration.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great article.
So it laid out, why are T-shirts so bad? Because everybody all the guys love a T-shirt, good old 100% cotton T-shirt. And there's all these dumb rules, like you can only wear it when the temperature is above such and such a degrees or whatever. And, and all the guys are like, the citizens don't care. Like when you show up at 4 o'clock in the morning, what T-shirt you got on. It's like we put all this emphasis on what T-shirt we have on. And then I was equally as critical of the guys, because let's say that you are allowed to wear a T-shirt, then the guys are going to wear the most bleached out one that has holes under the arms,
stains,
and looks like a rag, and it's like, yeah. And it's like, dude, I mean, if you're allowed to wear it, at least wear a good one, so that you don't open yourself up for that criticism. But I always say, if you don't know what to manage, then you manage what you wear. And it's so easy to be a uniform Nazi and be on people about everything. But the bottom line is, I mean, it is a very, very labor intensive, hard, physically demanding job. Now, there is a time to look sharp and be pristine, but being on duty running calls is not that time.
Right on.
You need something that is comfortable. And I came from the days of polyester uniforms and the shiny chloroform shoes. And when we finally went and were able to get a pair of Rocky boots for the first time, like around 1987, 1988, man, we thought we had gone to heaven, that we didn't have to wear those freaking shiny chloroform
leather,
shoes. And then look at the cops. I mean, the cops wore the same thing, right? And they're in foot chases trying to chase people down, and they got polyester buttoned up stuff with all the metal and all. And so, the sew-on patches, the Nomex, all that stuff. But there's nothing wrong with a 100% cotton T-shirt. That's like, why do we focus on this little bitty minuscule stuff that nobody really cares about? Obviously, you got to have discipline in an organization, and you got to have a chain of command. But I think some people take it a little bit too far. And again, you could go burn down a house, miss your search, miss a victim. Nobody says anything, but if you got on the wrong T-shirt, they're going to write you up after the fire. So that's where that came from. Actually, for those of you who don't know, I was actually fired in Atlanta over that article for 30 days. But
wow, that's amazing.
I came back and was promptly demoted because I was in a appointed position for a couple of years, but ended up getting promoted back. And that's about all I can say about it. I'm not allowed to talk about the settlement. So
it's so awesome, man. That's such a great story, man. I really do love it. And that's it. That is what I have for my research I did on your articles. Because every time I have a guest on, I ask them, what would you like to talk about? And they send me their topics. And then I go and research them, and I ask my questions that I want to ask. And now I'm actually getting to the actual question or stuff that Chief Rhodes wanted to bring up and talk about. So welcome to the party and everything. And there's been a ton of technical issues. If you posted a question you wanted to answer to, hey, everybody, it's gone because we relaunched. Everything on the other one was gone. This is a brand new one. So post your questions for Chief Rhodes if you want them answered. All right. I'm going right into smoke divers. Because that is one of the first things you put in the email when I said topics to talk about. And I really want to touch on perception. What is it, according to you, versus what people perceive it to be?
Well, I think the perception from people who don't know much about it is that it's just a tough guy contest, that it's kind of like a week of hazing where you just get your butt handed to you. But I can say that in the initial days, more of that went on, like in 78, even when I went through in 86, there was some of that, and it wasn't all that. Even when I went through, there was a lot of things, I learned a ton, but the program shut down in 1995 in Georgia, and we brought it back in 2005, and we brought it back with a whole new mission, and that was that we were going to stay true to the drills and the concepts that went on, but we were going to add a new element that was a leadership element. And we were going to really focus on your personal journey of overcoming adversity. And I think we've accomplished that. We've grown the program now to include Indiana and Oklahoma. And we're working on a couple of more.
Right on.
But it takes, it's a commitment. I mean, it's like making wine. From the time somebody says they want to start a program that is affiliated with us, you're looking at 5 to 7 years before you get your first program off the ground, because you have to send your instructors through our program, and then they have to intern for years in order to be able to understand exactly what it is we're doing and how we can pull it off safely. So the biggest thing is that, yes, it is very difficult. There's only, we average between 45 and 55% completion rate. The majority of those drop out on their own, but we do dismiss people for failure to meet standards. But I can honestly say, we do exit interviews on every single person that leaves. And, a guy will come for a day and a half, and in their exit interview tell us it was the best training that they've ever had, and they'll be back. We've had people come 4 or 5 times before they actually complete it. And it just goes to show, there's so much that you can learn from not being successful at something when you try it the first time. And, maybe you've been very fortunate, and, you've had all the right breaks, and you've been successful by default, maybe. In your own organization. Maybe you were related to somebody, and that gave you the perception of success because you were promoted, or you were, in somebody's club or whatever. But at Smoke Divers, it doesn't matter.
Nice.
It doesn't matter if you're a chief, if you're a captain, if you're black, white. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters except for what you can do in your performance. And we're very proud of that fact. We had our 10th female firefighter come through this last class, and only the second one, and since we've been back in 2005, and there was no changing of standards. There was no, she had to do every single thing that everybody else did, and I might say she did them better than about 80 to 90% of the people in the class. So. We don't compromise on things. We're constantly improving the program, and we're trying to get out more information so people are successful. But there's a lot of unknowns, and that's on purpose, because that adds to the stress, and it actually helps you in your experience there to gain the things that we're wanting you to get, which is critical decision making. We want to put you in situations where we don't give you a canned answer. You got to figure things out while there's live fire, while there's stress, while there's a chance that you may not make it. So all those things add up, and we do that. We have a tremendous safety record, and but that type of training in the wrong hands can be very dangerous. There has been some incidents with other programs that have taught us some things, and we're constantly watching and changing that. But we don't have a coin on the word smoke diver, so anybody in the world can start a smoke diver program and call it smoke divers. But we do have control on Georgia smoke divers, Indiana smoke divers, and Oklahoma smoke divers. And just while we're on the subject, just a shout out.
That's a good looking state right there.
Oklahoma.
Good looking state.
Oklahoma for class 2. And thank you, Muskogee, for stepping up. We call them the Smokies from Muskogee now.
Nice.
They had to change location, another whole story in adversity. And of course, back to class 1 in Indiana.
All right.
The old camo Indiana hat there. So just a shout out to all those folks, Matt and Brian, tremendous dedication. And one thing that people don't understand is we're not in smoke divers for the it's not like a conference where you're getting money or whatever. All 3 programs are 501c3 nonprofits, and not one person in any organization takes a dime, even though they're giving a minimum of 80 hours that week of class. And there's 2 classes in Georgia, one in Oklahoma and one in Indiana, but nobody gets a dime from any of it. All the money goes back in. It actually costs the instructors money to come and teach the class.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. No, and the dedication is unreal.
Yeah, but that's why it is what it is because, there's no ulterior motives. It is truly about giving back what the program gave to you. And we're trying to make, we're trying to make good firefighters better. Just because you can't do the training or because you don't make it, there's no making fun of people. When I exit interview everybody, I tell them, hey, it's going to be tough when you get back to the station because you're going to have those people that are like, oh, you didn't even make it through the first day. And I say, well, you look them right in the eye and say, well, you didn't even make the drive over
right
here.
On.
So just get back at it and charge ahead. But definitely love the programs. That's kind of my focus right now, that FDIC and the UL research. I don't have to swap to do those things anymore or use all my vacation and get in trouble with my wife. Yeah. So
that's beautiful, man. No, I love it, man. I've got one of the first one of my guys here at Moore Fire Department made it through the Georgia Smoker Diver program. Now he's teaching at the Oklahoma Smoke Diver program. So I vicariously I don't want to claim anything other than just seeing what he's done gives me a mad respect for it. Does that make sense? So I got some good questions coming at you. One is from one of my favorite people on the whole planet, Todd Edwards. He asks, how does David Rhodes always stay calm as an incident commander? By far one of the best I ever worked with.
I guess just, repetition. I tried to always not get excited and just be that voice of calm no matter what was going on. And Todd and I ran tons of fires together, and probably one of the scariest incidents of both of our careers was when Clark Glass was trapped in a fire that we were in charge of. And but yeah, it just, I tried to keep the voice the same the whole time. I had confidence in the crews because we trained all the time. And just they say if you're the incident commander, you're herding cats, and you just got to have trust in your guys and let them do what they're trained to do, and then keep an eye. You got to keep an eye out because they can't see the outside. Well, you can't see the inside, and so you got to have good information. You got to know your people, number one, and know who you can trust and who you may need to trust but verify from. There's always a few, I was very fortunate in 2004 when I got promoted to chief, and it's pretty much residential, a little bit of commercial, and I was going to track my fires, keep a log and all that for the rest of my career. But I had about 70 fires that first year. And it was a great, intro in. It was just a lot of 1-2 story house fires, and definitely built confidence. I had, just good luck with being in that assignment. And
right.
that got me, repetition. My buddy Scott Millsap, mentor, always said repetition is the mother of skill. And so, I got to face a lot of different situations. And, of course, Todd Edwards and Todd was in command, and I was I was in the back of the structure as the Charlie side sector there. And when we had a collapse and Clark Glass got trapped, and we had to go into managing the Mayday mode. And so, yeah, Todd asked the question, but Todd was a great incident commander also in his day. I don't know if he heard me when we went on the first time, but he just had a problem driving. Other than he couldn't drive very well. Other than that, he's a great incident commander.
Awesome.
That's anybody that knows Todd or worked in Atlanta knows what I'm talking about.
Fair enough. Okay, coming from another Atlanta firefighter, Danny Dwyer said, what was your best day and worst day as a fireman?
Shoot, I don't know. There were so many best days. I guess right off the top of my head was my very last day as a driver. I was on truck 2, and we caught a working fire with entrapment. It was me, Greg Wise, and Captain Farmer on the truck. Wagon 2, as we called it back then, was on a medical call, so we were first in. and it was a kitchen fire. I mean, there was people screaming that the kid was in there. And so me, Greg, and Cap Farmer went in there. And I went to the kitchen to try to see if I could do anything. Fire was looking up the balcony there to the second floor, and they took off upstairs because we had report that the kid was upstairs. And so I started ripping the cabinets down with my hook and dragging what I could out the back door, flowing the kitchen sprayer. It was sporty. It was pretty sporty in there. They got the kid out. And, as the engine company was getting the line to the door, we were coming out with the kid, and the kid made it. So that was probably memorable. One of my best days from a fire. Worst day was obviously the incident we just talked about with Clark Glass, where we had that collapse. But, when it was all over, we had a total roof collapse on him, pinned him to where he couldn't move. And because we stayed calm, because everybody worked good together, and we had the team that was there from incident command all the way through the crews, we were able to get him out in 16 minutes. And,
nice.
Was seeing him come down that ladder under his own power was tremendous. So it was kind of a bad and good at the same time. Obviously he was hurt, was out of work.
But yeah, both the ones you just described are sound like they had good endings, at least.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Going to my first staff meeting after being re-promoted was kind of nice also.
This is a little vindication.
As a battalion chief. So can't really talk about much more of that. Fair. But I did let them know that I appreciated the paid vacation.
Let me see where I'm at. Justin C. Ply had a question about the GSD, which is oldest person to complete the program. Is it an actual training class, or is everyone expected to know the material already?
So it is a training class, but it helps if you have experience. Obviously, you need to have mastered the basics. If you come and your basic skills are lacking, you're going to struggle tremendously. We used to have a 2-year requirement where you had to be on for 2 years. We dropped that. We have a qualification process now where you have to come and compete for a spot in the class. So the way it's laid out is, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is all training. You're getting technique, you're getting repetitions. It is grueling. We're doing PT every day. So the purpose of the class, again, to work your critical decision making, is every drill that we do, maybe with the exception of just one or two, you have probably already done, but you have not done them in the context of what we put you in. So we do PT every morning, not to get you in shape. We do PT to wear you out. And as your body starts to wear out, things start to happen. Very much like CO poisoning, your decision-making decreases, your level of awareness decreases. And so on the first day, I tell all the students, if you're working out and you want a bigger bicep, then you have to break that bicep down and let it rebuild, and you break it down again and it rebuilds. Well, we don't ever really get to that point in fire service training with our mental side. So we break the body down, it gets into the mental side, and then we can exercise when we're at that really depleted state. And then we can run drills, and you perform in those drills, and you sort of learn what it feels like when you're in that, in that environment. And we're right on the edge all the time, from Wednesday on. And so it's very much training. It's all training, but very much hands-on with the instructors training you Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then Wednesday, you're kind of starting to be put to the test on some of those skills, and you're having to do some things by yourself some things you're with a team or with a partner, but you have to do some things by yourself. And it's a very, very mental, very much a mental game.
Right on.
And that's what it's for. I mean, it's to exercise that mind, as the shirt says, elite few, strong in mind and body. And as one of our members so eloquently put it, is we are elite, but we are not elitist. And so just the word elite means that not very many people have done it. But we really hammer in that does not make you better than anyone else. It just makes you different. You've experienced something that affects you. And one of some of the proudest comments we get is that we're teaching people how to overcome adversity.
Right.
And it's not just personal limitations. It's showing you, you can read, you can go to leadership classes and do PowerPoint all day. You can take situational awareness classes and learn what it is and all that stuff. But we teach all those things through hands-on. We teach leadership out there where you're sweating and tired and hurting and have to make decisions that affect you and your partner. And we're giving you that experience so that you can increase your situational awareness. So you know what it feels like to be extremely hot. You know what it feels like to be trapped and can't move. You know what it feels like to be searching without a line. You know what you know what to do. And if you're never put in the situation, the worst place to learn is on the fire ground. You want to make training as realistic as possible, while keeping things as safe as possible,
right.
But getting the most bang for the buck, and that's what we do. So it's training, and part of it is testing too.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful answer. Okay, Kyle Romick, Smoothbore Cartel, throwing another one at you. He said, unfortunately, and this is kicking back before the smoke diver answer, but unfortunately, he says reports are not written and massively distributed when there is not a line of duty death, right? They don't dig in deep on it. He said, what are some lessons that you learned from the incident with Clark?
Oh man, the biggest one was our practice of overhaul. So everybody does it. Unfortunately, they still do it, but we would get to a point in a fire to where, the structure's heavily damaged. And we put our people in there for massive overhaul. Mm-hmm. And instead of calling a track hoe excavator in there to knock the thing down into a pile and leave one engine sitting there for a while, we want to get back in service. We want to get those crews back in service and get things done. So, it had just the culture of our organization was we pretty much overhauled everything. And in that case, that was one, 95% of the fire was out. There was a couple of stubborn hot spots. Made the decision to send them in to check and see if they could get to this one spot. And, while they were in there, the worst thing happened, the freaking roof collapsed. And this was a large house. It was a mansion, and it had a slate roof. It had metal windows, so you couldn't take the panes of the windows out without cutting them. And but the roof on this house had just been redone, and the roof cost $200,000.
Oh wow!
And it was actually pieces of slate. So we learned, and Todd, back to Todd, we made the decision, we're not going to put our people in that position again. We will keep control of that building and call public works. We'll use ladders, master streams, whatever. We'll leave an engine on site to watch for flare-ups and hot spots. And, I think him and I and a couple other chiefs did a pretty good job at sticking to that throughout the rest of our career. But as a whole, the organization still does the exact same thing. I mean, they put people in there to overhaul, and, it's we, you got, on one hand, you got you got fire chiefs that won't let you go in a vacant building, and on the other hand, the same fire chiefs are telling you to to overhaul buildings that are about to collapse. So overhauling is super dangerous, and don't be afraid to call the excavator and knock it all down. Because if it's a burned out shell, you're actually doing the community a favor by knocking it into a pile, because that way nobody can get back in it and set it back on fire.
No, I like it. And you've answered. So we've touched on so many things, and it's beautiful. And even Kyle said, I've heard the audio. They stayed cool as a cucumber. And that's awesome, man. That's a great
Thank you.
compliment. It was at this point when the internet crashed for the final time on the night, and we did not resume until 2 days later. And so we pick up with a new topic here as Chief David Rhodes continues the interview 2 days later. But we're going to jump right off where we left off, and we're going to start with decision making. That's one of the topics we wanted to cover. So I'm going to throw decision making at you as our soft toss to start the evening tonight, sir.
All right. Yeah. And if anybody had questions that they didn't get in on the other topics, feel free to send them in, and we'll get to those too. So when we started the smoke diver program back in 2005, after a 10-year hiatus, I got really, really intrigued and wanted to research decision making, because we wanted to make sure that our drills were not just teaching a skill, but they were also teaching firefighters how to think about what they were doing. And one of the big parts of smoke divers with every drill is knowing what the why is. Why are we doing what we're doing? What do we see? How do we interpret it, and all that? So back in 2005, reached out to several of the older smoke diver instructors and stuff, and asked them what they thought about it. And Lee Stewart, who was fire chief in Brunswick, Georgia at the time, he recommended that I read a book about Colonel John Boyd, which most people know by now, because they're teaching it at the National Fire Academy and stuff, is the father of the OODA loop.
The OODA.
And he was an Air Force colonel. So I read that, and it just totally fascinated me. And inside the book, it talked about several of the guys that were along the journey with him, that worked at the Pentagon with him. And one was Chet Richards, and it said Chet Richards now lives in Atlanta. So I looked the guy up, and I find him. I call him. I get his phone number, and I call him. And we just talked like two long lost buddies. And I tell him, of course, I played the fire department card, and he had an office in Atlanta. And within a day or two, I had swung by in the battalion car and picked him up and took him for a little ride around the city. And he was very intrigued about teaching me everything that he could about Boyd. So he gave me all of Boyd's papers.
Oh, wow.
Sent them to me, electronically. And Boyd had tons of, short papers, patterns of destruction, analysis and synthesis, and they just go on and on. They all tie together to decision making. And so I really got deep in there. Now, Chet he has a PhD in mathematics, and him and Boyd worked together designing airplanes at the Pentagon. Several of the projects, obviously the plane you see in Top Gun is I can't ever remember, F-15, I think. And one is an Air Force model, one's a Navy model. Yes. So for all you military plane buffs, don't kill me. It's the one with the two fins on the back, and it's real cool looking. So Boyd is the one who developed that Top Gun maneuver. I'll slam on the brakes and they'll fly right by. He believed in maneuverability, and that translated into warfighting. And that if you were nimble, small units, you could move very quickly versus the old war of attrition with big armies and stuff. And so digging into that, I discovered the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And then the loop starts over every time. And it made perfectly good sense versus what you would read in the fire service literature back in the 80s, 90s, was that you resize up every 15 to 20 minutes.
Right.
Well, really, you resize up every second.
Yeah.
I mean, you make a decision, somebody takes action, and you look for a particular outcome. And if you don't see it, you reset, you're just constantly in this loop. So it made a lot of sense. And so what I learned was that in order to train for decision-making versus just learning a task, you need to do scenario-based training. And you need to have context to why you're doing what it is you're doing. Obviously, you got to use the crawl, walk, run type deal. So you do have to learn the skill first. But at some point in learning that skill, you can't just stop. You have to put it into a scenario. There has to be some unknown conditions, and you have to let the firefighters perform in that context. And you don't give them the answer up front. You have to let them find the answer in the scenario. And it may not be what you would have done, but you're looking for outcome. And then you go back and you critique, and you have a little hot wash, and you say, well, I would have probably done this, but I see what you did there and it worked. And now you've got that. Now you got that in your database there in your slide tray to fall back on, and tied that in with the recognition prime decision-making stuff that was out there. And they both went hand in hand.
Nice.
Boyd's stuff was before Gary Klein's stuff, but you could tell they were on to the same philosophy. Basically, they were just calling it something different. So when you look at the OODA loop, observe, of course, that's what you see, what you hear, what you feel. It can be the elements, it can be heat, it can be radio traffic, whatever. And then the most important piece is the orientation, which is actually your situational awareness. And like with smoke divers, I mean, there are people who teach situational awareness classroom stuff, and they have some drills and stuff. With smoke divers, we are developing your situational awareness by putting you in a lot of different situations to build your database. One mistake is that you can't just read a book and change your situational awareness. It is what it is. It's what you bring to the table right now. All your prior experiences, the way you were brought up as a kid, the training you've had, the education you've had, it all comes together at that moment. And that is your situational awareness. And there's nothing really you can do about it right then. So in order to improve it, you have to have more experiences. You have to have more experiences, more training, more development, and then you tend to increase your awareness of what's going on around you. As Chief Todd Edwards asked, how do you remain calm or whatever on the scene the other night? Well, that's how. It's repetition. It's repetition to get you used to the environment, but not repetition to turning you into a robot necessarily to where you're not thinking. It's just that the routine skills, like getting dressed, putting on your air pack, doing a size up, advancing a line, you don't think about those. So you're able to focus on the environment and your orientation. So
beautiful.
Then of course you make a decision, you act on it, and the loop starts over. But what I found is that inside orientation, and I got some notes here because I can't ever remember all this stuff, is your culture of your organization, your cultural traditions, your ability to analyze and synthesize information. So how do you see something and understand what it means?
Right.
And to put that in perspective, you say you got to do a 360 as the first due officer. You need to do that 360. And some people have coined the term, it's not just a walk around the building. So you're not just walking around the building to check the box to say you did a 360. What if you see you see some heavy black smoke, you see a basement door. You see a propane tank, you see a hole in the back, an open well, whatever it is, yes. You're supposed to be gathering that in, and then you got to pass that along with the radio traffic. Your previous experiences are huge on your orientation. And so there's only two places that we can actually influence orientation, and that's previous experiences. We can create a lot of experiences by going to incidents, by doing lessons learned, by training. But not just any training. Take, for instance, fire simulation software, and you do command to develop your decision making. Well, I've seen it done to where there's static slides. Everybody sees the same 3 or 4 slides, no matter what you do. All right, especially on promotional exams.
Right.
So you see these 3, 4 slides. You may do some tactic that is going to totally change the fire behavior. Let's take, for instance, you set up a fan at the front door.
Sure.
You haven't taken a line in. The fire is going to grow exponentially and get bigger because you're blowing air. You are creating a wind-driven fire. All right. But unless you can change that slide to show that, and you just go to the next slide and it doesn't show that, you're actually screwing your brain up because there was no consequences to your action. So if you want to truly train for good decision making and good orientation, you have to create realistic prior experiences, whether it's simulated or whether it's actually, out on the drill yard. Obviously, you can do self-study.
I want to dig.
Read.
I want to dig and say, for the simulation, is it strictly, because I get exactly what you're saying. When you have static slides and no matter what decision you make, you're going to get the next slide. You're actually reinforcing. You could be reinforcing bad habits, or
absolutely.
But is it just strictly what I'm trying to put the question the right way? Is it the work on the front end to make enough slides to make it to where the decisions matter, so that they're represented with consequences? Is that the best we can do with simulation? I'm guessing is what I'm trying to ask.
Absolutely, and that's something, of course, that I do, and a couple of my training partners. And yes, our person who runs the computer and runs the simulation has to know building construction. They have to know fire behavior, and they have to understand tactics, so that if a firefighter takes a certain tactic, they know what that's going to do to the building, and they can change the slide. And the slide chart from behind the scenes looks like a EMS priority call dispatch sheet.
Right.
Is he breathing?
Branching everywhere.
Yes, go this way. It's just a total loop. Yeah, and so it doesn't take as many as you would think. It doesn't take 400 slides, but if you're going to have a simulated house fire, you're going to need 20, 25 slides to be able to show the different tactics and different things that can happen. What happens when you vent the roof versus take a window?
Right.
You got to have a slide for both, and they both may work. And so again, you're looking for the outcome, but if you don't change the picture to match the tactics, then the person's not learning anything. And they have a very good chance of reinforcing bad habits because they don't see consequences.
Absolutely.
Even if you tell them at the end, hey, you shouldn't have done this because this would have happened. Well, it didn't happen in your visual cues. So you just kind of wash that off, and you're going to go back to doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
So those are good areas.
And remember, if you have
the
questions,
only other place.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, the only other place that we can affect is in new information, and obviously, that's information that comes from the company officers inside or around back. It's what we hear on the radio traffic. It's so important to listen to the radio traffic. You can learn so much just by voice inflection. And you want to train enough with your guys so that there's that implicit communication that occurs just because you can tell tone of voice. Are they exhausted? Are they in good place? Are they hot? You can tell a lot just by really paying attention to the details.
No, that is beautiful. And how important on that the communication. Sorry, I'm making sure that goes away. I want to tell this before I go to my questions. Everybody out there, remember, if you have questions from the other night or any clarification you wanted from the chopped up, make sure you get your questions in, get him into Chief Rhodes so he can answer them. Going back to the notes, coming at you, Chief. Here it is. Experiential training. I had to say it correctly. Experiential training. I wanted to move on to that discussion.
And so that ties right in.
Yeah.
Is what that means is that you are creating an experience through a scenario. You can, some of the acronyms, they call it tactical decision games is one that's used even in the military and in the fire service. And sometimes those are very simple. It may be you have a picture of a house and you hold it up in front of somebody for 5 seconds, and then you ask them a question. Okay, what would you do if there was fire showing from the garage? And it's all timed. So like you got to have an answer right now. You can't, it's not a discussion.
Right.
It's like teaching you to make quick decisions. And then in the field, it's a scenario that enables adaptability. And the whole key here, what is really missing is, and I think you may have asked something about it on the last one, is I get so many young guys that you're training and they say, well, what's the best way to put the fire out?
Right.
And you're like, I can't answer that because you gotta show me the fire first and the build and construction and all the other variables that go in. So you have to be able to teach them to think and to have enough tools in the toolbox to be able to pull out options and get them started. But you don't want them to go into the analysis paralysis. I always say a person who's inexperienced will size up, they won't make a decision, they'll size up again, they still won't make a decision. And by the time they do decide to make a decision, they turn around and look and it's different again. So sometimes you just need to grab the line and go. No. And, there's an old saying that a pretty good plan implemented right now,
yes,
with strength, vigor, and heart is 100 times better than a perfect plan 3 days from now.
Right on.
And you're going to always Monday morning quarterback, and you're going to find out, well, we should have gone in this door, we should have done this. Well, you don't freaking know that at the time. So you got to build momentum. You got to get the ball rolling and build momentum. And, as that first line goes, the whole incident rides on that first line so many times.
Absolutely.
Because if that doesn't work and you go wrong or you lose your water or whatever, then, you're playing catch up for the next 20, 30 minutes, maybe hours even.
Yeah. Into the second
so that's it. It's basically creating experiential training is creating a scenario that allows the student to operate in realistic as possible conditions with unknown factors and unknown outcomes so that they have to make the decisions. They have to decide where to search. You don't tell them you're going to start your search here or you're going to do this. You give them the scenario and you create the environment and you tell them to go.
Let them go.
And obviously they have to have mastered the basics before that. So that's not something you start off day one in rookie school with, but by the end of each lesson in rookie school, you should be putting your firefighters in scenarios that make them perform, not just the old 1, 2, 3 squirt, don't put my fire out, but create things, create issues, and don't over create them so they can't win,
right,
and bombard them. But, some of these guys were FDIC instructors, that do cool stuff like, you're so used to stretching a pre-connect or stretching that skid load and stuff. Put a car in front of the door. Park a car right in front of the door where you got to get it. Put a fence up. Do something that's out of the ordinary that makes you adapt. And in order to create that adaptability, you have to have instructors that understand adaptability, not just people who've read the book and regurgitated the information, whatever. And I truly don't think that you get the experience to build your situational awareness, to have the experiential training in a classroom. And I'm not knocking the folks that teach the stuff. It's like, I almost look at it like it's an awareness level. you're teaching people what situational awareness is. You're teaching them what decision making is. But until you get out in the field and actually make decisions, you're not going to get any better at it.
Right on. No, I understand that completely. Ryan King said, the newer people always try to find the black and white answers. It's hard to get them to think on their own and realize that there is no one simple answer.
Right. And they're just so, they're so used to instant knowledge. If I wanted to learn something, I had to go to the encyclopedia when I was a kid, and I had to do search. Now we can just Google it and it's instant. So they want to know what the answer is, and it's never that simple. And that's where we sell our recruits short, is by we're still trying to train them in the military boot camp. We didn't hire you for your mind, we hired you for your body, and do as I say. And really, you can still have the discipline and the esprit de corps and all that stuff, but you really need to say, from day one, hey, I want you to think about everything that we're saying here and everything that you're doing, because, so many people tell them not to think.
Right. And
that's the old World War II basic training thing, is they didn't want you to think. They just wanted you to do whatever the officer said. Well, we got to go beyond that. And the guys today are much smarter, for the most part. They're just different. So we got to change the training model. A prime example of that is chainsaws.
Yes.
Okay. So when I went to recruit school, it was like, okay, here's the chainsaw, fire it up, and we'll show you how to cut a roof. All right. So you fired the chainsaw up and you cut a roof. Today, this is a chainsaw. There are many like it.
This one
happens to be a Stihl 52 or whatever, and it's like, it takes a mixture of oil and gas. And here's how you mix the oil and gas. You have to go all the way, because they've never held a chainsaw or whatever. So what was a 3 or 4 hour class to me on how to cut a roof may be a 2 or 3 day class, because you got to start with how to take the chain off and put it on correctly, how to add oil. You got to start at the very beginning, stuff that your dad or your granddad, or if you worked on a farm, everybody came with those skills for the most part in the 50s through the 80s. Mm-hmm. And then around the 90s, it started dwindling down, and you didn't have those skills anymore. And it's not it doesn't mean they're dumb. That's a big mistake. They're actually way more smarter than we were, but they don't have those practical farm skill type things, or trades. If they haven't worked in the trades, everybody in 1985, when I started at the Little Conyers Fire Department, every single person was in the trades. One was an HVAC guy, one was an electrician, and you learn adaptability, because nothing ever fits the blueprint or the plan. You have to figure it out on the scene.
Right.
So you're in a job that makes you adapt. But if all you do is go to school, play some video games and all that, you don't get those skills.
No,
and it's not bad. I'm not knocking it. It's just different. So you have to train differently.
Absolutely, man. Some people said Don Sapp said it's the culture. Sarah Furman said there's no Googling on the fire ground. Attention to detail. Michael Sandala said, we are a hands-on craft, not a book-only craft. Everybody's chiming in. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Richard Bew said, we don't pay you to think is always the return comment. And then Justin C. Ply said, let me get down there to it. We had one put water in a saw because he thought the drop on the cap meant water. So, no, and it's true. If you didn't grow up with that, it's true. It's absolutely true.
True. So we had a recruit class. Is probably getting close to 10 years now, 7 to 10 years, and it was a double class. It's like 60 people, 30 in one side, 30 in the other. But we combined them all for an SCBA lecture before we started doing our hands-on training. So everybody has a pack. We're sitting around, big room with everybody's at a table. I'm standing up in the middle, and we're going over the parts and pieces and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, so we're going to disconnect the main line. And I showed everybody where it was. And I'm like, so take that off. I said, it unscrews. So unscrew it. A few people are struggling a little bit with, the old righty-tighty, lefty-loosey thing and stuff. And I would say probably 25% of them were struggling. Then we go to something else. And I'm noticing that like just basic things like quarter turn on the Scott face piece. All these things are not natural to these folks. And so I just called a timeout and I said, let me ask the question. Nobody's in trouble. How many of you in here have started a lawnmower and cut your own grass? Out of 60 people.
Oh,
2.
wow. No, yeah.
2. And so I said, so when I said righty tighty, lefty loosey, who knew what I was talking about? About half of them raised their hand. So I grabbed a water bottle and I said, has everybody opened a water bottle or a Gatorade bottle? They're like, yeah. And I said, okay, same concept here. Think about how you take the water bottle cap on and off. And I said, look at the water bottle. You see that spiral? Those are threads. Now look at your air pack. You're looking at I said, it's very easy to thread that water bottle because it's so thick. It's a thick thread and it's gapped. And I said, but when you get the machine threads, they're real tight and intricate. So you got to be perfect. And so you have to go to that. You don't call them, y'all don't know shit. Y'all are stupid, blah, blah, blah. You got to go to something that they know and relate it to. So we started doing repetition. So it was like, it sounded corny and it sounded like it was definitely unnecessary when I went to recruit school, but it was like, okay, we're going to do everything 10 times. Take the main line off. Everybody got it off, hold it up. All right, now let's put it back on. Okay, take it off, put it back on. We did 10 reps on everything. By the end, they had it. Right. And guess what? I got a call from a lieutenant about 2 years later, and he had this guy at a station that was a recruit who was in that class. And the guy wasn't very bright. He couldn't remember a whole lot of anything. He couldn't remember his hose lays or how to put the hose on the truck or whatever. He goes, man, I just want to tell you though. He goes, that joker knows everything there is to know about a breathing apparatus.
Nice.
He said, he says, we test him out on 10 things and he fails 10. And we go, all right, go get your air pack. And he's like, well, this is a quarter turn here. And this is a so-and-so, this is a low pressure and the air comes. And it was because we took that time and did those repetitions. Then we put him in scenarios where he had to use it. So.
No, that's that. And we got a lot of comments coming at you. Here we go. I'll try to read them. I'll try to catch you up. Amanda Miller said, hammer the principles in. The methods will arise from a thorough knowledge of basics and an ingrained understanding of principles. The man who grasps principles can successfully select his own methods. The man who tries methods ignoring principles is sure to have trouble. And she's quoting Emerson. So beautiful quote. It's our job to develop the trade of firefighting in them. That comes from Michael Allen quoting Ray McCormick. Smoothbore Cartel chimes in and said, the man who hates the question of why is the man who doesn't have the answer. Beautiful, man. So good stuff coming in on all of this. All right. No questions.
Why?
Yet.
Because I said so.
Because that's the way I said so. Yeah, absolutely. Which shuts down
Another
questions.
one of my favorite drills.
Yes.
Another one of my favorite drills is, and we did this in recruit schools, when we do it at smoke divers, we do it every chance we get, is you take the air pack. Now, obviously this is not a first day deal. This is once the candidate is comfortable with the air pack. So we'll take like groups of 4 or 5, and we take their air packs from them. We turn them around, have them face the other way. And then we do something to each air pack, something different. We may disconnect the main line. We may turn the bypass on, and trip the diaphragm so that it's free flowing. We might tighten one strap all the way down. We do something that is like going to screw you up. Then we tell them it's a race. All right. Whoever gets their air pack on first, is going to win. Everybody else owes us 50 push-ups or whatever. So immediately you take out of their mind checking the equipment out.
They're going for speed.
Okay. And I don't like setting people up to fail, but there's a purpose and method to this madness. they're going to win eventually, but they got to learn the hard way to get there. So then you go, and they turn around. Well, their air pack is not in front of them. It's been switched and moved, and, we got their helmets mixed up and all that. So they got to put the air pack on. Well, they immediately go throw it on, straps down, and they have to solve the problem.
Right.
And so my whole deal, and I tell them by the end of doing that for an hour, and I don't know how many reps we get in an hour with each group of 5, but you have solved almost every problem you're ever going to encounter. And I want you to I want you to hear the sound and know what the problem is.
Right on.
So that your hand goes directly to the problem and fixes it. You need to know what you got to take your pack off to fix, what you can leave it on to fix. And at the same time, you are stressing the importance of checking your equipment out in the morning, because you say, hey, how many times have you gotten to work, checked your air pack out, and they had a fire and the main line's disconnected to the bottle? It's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
They've been up all night, and they popped the bottle on and threw it on the truck. So those kind of drills are back to that scenario, enabling adaptability that creates good decision making. It creates good habits.
Beautiful. I love it, man. All right. I love and I love the drills. Search size up, man. One of my favorite topics, search and search size up. So I'm just throwing you soft tosses right now and letting you crush them.
Yeah. So, I wrote that article. I don't know. It's been years ago for fire engineering, and it was size up for search. And a lot of people had written about search and how to search and techniques. And so, again, this goes back to decision making. Is we teach at the basic firefighter level, and I see it all around the country. You teach the recruits, for the most part, the safest, most ineffective search that there is, which is a right hand sign. Are you back?
I'm back. Zoom just crashed unexpectedly and then came right back. So hopefully there's no issue.
Woo.
I'm having PTSD flashbacks from the other night.
I know. As soon as I saw you freeze, I'm like, I know. So
back to
we teach the
most
recruits.
ineffective. Yeah, most ineffective, I think. Go ahead.
Yes. So we teach them to go to the front door, do a right hand or left hand search, crawl around, on the outside wall and all. And that's, that keeps you oriented very well. But it is so ineffective. Now, starting out as a basic academy and just getting people used to being in the dark and all that is fine. But if you want to find somebody, you got to size that structure up. You got to know what's the time of day, you got to play the probabilities, because if it's just you and one other guy searching, and you got a 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 square foot house to search, time is of the essence. That's an old essentials quote, in rescue. Time is against the victim. Yes. So you need to look at that house, take into consideration all these old lessons that were in the book, time of day. What are the visual signs that you see outside? Are there cars home? If it's 2 o'clock in the morning, why in the world would I start a search at the front door on a right-hand wall and go into the living room?
Right.
Okay.
Oh,
now, could there be somebody there? Absolutely. But more than likely, they are in a bedroom or between their main egress, which may not be the front door, depending on the neighborhood. It may be the garage door. They're going to be between there and the bedroom, or they're going to be in the bedroom. So why don't we go straight to the bedroom?
Love it.
That's why vent enter search is so critical. More rescues are made with vent enter search than any other type of tactic. You go straight to the most probable location of the victim and then search back to the exit.
Love it, man.
Some people give you technical, like go to the closest to the fire and all that. Well, it depends on the time of day. If it's a 2-story house, and you got to know your building construction, and you learn that on those pesky EMS calls.
Yes, sir.
So if it's a 1960s, 1970s 2-story, all the bedrooms are upstairs. if it's 80s, you're going to start seeing masters on the main. You're going to see masters on one side of the house on a ranch and kids' rooms on the other side. So you need to know these things so that you can plan your search accordingly. And if you do that, you couple that with your building construction knowledge, you couple that with your fire behavior knowledge, man, I can get in there and I can close doors. I can cut off areas, and I can create the safest environment there is while being the most aggressive firefighter out there.
Nice.
Okay. I don't have to have all these policies and all this stuff to follow to be safe. If I know the building construction and I know fire behavior, I can make it safe by using those tactics. Just closing a door might buy me 20 minutes.
Nice, man. Different questions coming at you. And Walter Lewis said VES, all caps, absolutely. The seconds are theirs, 100%. And what I like, man, is just using the noggin. I mean, the search size up, using your noggin, being the detective and saying, where
absolutely,
man, 100%.
What if you see a soccer ball in the front yard? What if you see a tricycle in the front yard? Yes. Don't just ignore it. If you see a tricycle in the yard, there's a toddler. If you see a soccer ball, you can take that age up just a little bit. There's all kinds of things that you can see from the outside of the house that gives you clues of who may be there. A finished basement, you got a basketball goal and a soccer net, whatever. You see some high school stickers on the car. Well, there's probably a teenager living in the basement.
Right on.
Everybody wants to get away from mom and dad, go down the basement so they can get on the internet and do things they're not supposed to do, right? So you gotta just think about those things. And I'm not talking about a freaking checklist. It's not like, okay, Rhodes said if there's a high school sticker. No, just ride around, go on your EMS calls when you're wiping folks' noses and stuff. Obviously, the trauma and the cardiac arrest, you got to get to it. But when you're on those wipe your nose calls or wipe what other parts you're wiping on those EMS calls.
Hopefully the nose, but go ahead.
Man, look around and look at those visual cues. And then after you get the refusal paperwork signed or the ambulance comes and does the same thing, sit there and talk about what do you see?
Dude, absolutely.
What are some things here? How many people do you think live in this house? You should be doing that every day as a company officer, every single day. Take every opportunity that you're out there instead of getting pissed off about the call. Use it as training. Use it as a training experience.
Beautiful, man. I love the EMS call, getting to know your district. Knowing your district so much more than map pages, man. Knowing those names. And the best part about it is, and I think Steve Robertson pushes this quite a bit, but when you go inside one of them in a neighborhood, how many times is that floor plan repeated in a neighborhood?
Absolutely.
It's so strong. Always be aware.
Yep. And the old houses, the old houses are very compartmentalized. And so there's a good chance that fire spread's a little different. And there's a great chance that, you're going to have that Wizard of Oz moment where you've got a burned out house and you open that door up because every room is compartmentalized. Nowadays, only the bedrooms are compartmentalized. Everything else is wide open. So you need to know that. You can't just VES on any window. Like, if you're popping into the living room, you don't have anything to close to cut off the fire. So you need to know that you're going in a bedroom or something. Now you can gain access that way. And if conditions aren't bad, you just extend your search on. But definitely sizing up, looking for all the visual cues. We talked about earlier, the abandoned building stuff. And when you're doing your walk around as an initial officer, you're looking for victims too.
Right.
You look up and, it's wintertime. You look up and see an open window and smoke's chugging out of it. Look in the bushes, and I think I put this in the article. Wouldn't you hate to know?
Oh, yeah.
That you did a 360, spent 10, 20 minutes searching that structure and all, and some cop comes up and says, "Hey man, I found this lady in the bushes out back. Yeah. She's barely breathing." So you just gotta kind of be aware. And it's, you're not searching the freaking, with a fine tooth comb, but you're looking,
Situational awareness again. It goes
behind it. Right.
full
Right.
circle, right
And
back to
it happens fast. It happens fast. You just got to be absorbing these things as you walk. So
it's beautiful. Now, this is the question we ultimately we're going to try and push this question and see if we can get past it, because last time this is the one that brought it to a screeching halt ultimately. But it is, and I'm super excited about this question but it's post-traumatic boss syndrome versus PTSD. So, run.
Right. So I'll preface this by saying that I don't mean to take anything away from PTSD. It's definitely real. A lot of people have issues after calls and after things that have happened. It's legit, and you need to talk about it. You need to use the peer support groups and all that stuff. And there's a big acceptance of that in the fire chiefs culture. They're big on those peer support groups, and they're big on those resources. I think the IAFF has a great program and all, and that is super, super great stuff. It needs to stay, it needs to be enhanced and all. But my personal philosophy on a lot of the mental health issues in the fire service is they are not caused by a call.
Okay.
The majority of problems that people have are caused by the organization itself.
Ooh.
By having a bad boss. All right. Now that bad boss could be at any level. It may be the chief. It may be a deputy chief. It may be your officer. But if you think about it, there's a lot more time spent just in the station life every day working with people than there is on calls. All right. So the odds are that more people are affected by bad bosses mentally than they are by bad calls. Now, it's a different type of stress, but it is a slow bleed to death stress.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because it's reoccurring every day. It's not a traumatic incident. It's not that you got cussed out one time, by your boss and it hurt your feelings. It's not that. It is a culture of bad, toxic decisions. It's bad promotional processes. It's lack of training, lack of being involved, lack of being allowed to have morale. We talked about the t-shirts.
Yes.
And no one thing fixes it. When I do my leadership stuff, the trust, love, and thermodynamics class, we talk about the picnic. Okay. It's like, okay, everybody knows morale's horrible. So we put a committee together of headquarters folks to decide what we're going to do about morale. And they decide we're going to have a picnic. Okay. We're going to have a picnic. So they order the food, they reserve the park, they do all that stuff. And who shows up? The headquarters staff.
The headquarters people.
Right. Yeah. And on the day of the picnic, you hear beep, beep, engine 20, respond to the picnic. They start dispatching companies to go to the picnic because they want people there to take the food that they've bought. But nobody is having fun. Picnics come out of high morale, and they're designed at the bottom of the organization, not at the top. It's good to have an employee appreciation day, an awards banquet. All that stuff is great. But you can't just have horrible morale and throw a picnic and think that it's going to solve everything. Because it's your culture. It's your culture that created the bad morale. Bad assignment policies. One of the things I fought for as a union president was a bid system, and it's been like on and off. But when people feel that they're getting a fair shake, and in these big organizations, there's no way the fire chief and decision makers know everybody and know who's best for what. So you have to put things in place, and you have to push that authority down to the lowest level of decision making so people can make it. At one time in our organization, It took 6 signatures to get a pair of gloves.
Wow.
If your firefighting gloves were worn out and you had a hole in it, it had to be approved by the deputy chief of operations. So if you were a firefighter, it had to go all the way up and stuff. And it's like, Brunacini always said it, we trust these folks with a $2 million ladder truck, but we can't trust them with a $40 pair of gloves.
Right.
So if the captain or the lieutenant at the station says you need a new pair of gloves, that should be it. That should be it. You just get you some new gloves.
I love it. I love it. Preach it.
The point of that bad boss behavior is it is truly a subculture of bad leadership. And there's so much bad leadership that infects and gets and creates toxic environments to where it becomes a power struggle. Do what I say. Look at here. Look at my collar. And people aren't in it for the right reason. And you're always going to have that because you're going to have different personalities and all that. But again, the reason I bring that up is I'm here to say more people are suffering mentally from bad bosses, bad policies, bad organizational culture than will ever suffer from a bad call.
That's
so you got to fix that. You got to fix that. And there's more too. I mean, the mental health issue goes, some people are miserable, whether they're in the fire service or whether they're selling cars or building houses, and they bring that to the job.
Yes.
And they don't have a support. They have a bad home life. They have bad relationships, and it's their personality or it's their experiences that create it. And those people are the dangerous folks that if you get them in a toxic work environment and don't give them brotherhood, sisterhood, a sense of feeling. Some people, the fire departments is their support network. That's what they have. If you take that away and you create a toxic environment of unfair punishment, bad promotional processes, it drives those folks over the edge.
Oh yeah.
It drives them over the edge. And I'm telling you, the fire chiefs don't want to study that because guess what? It's like me looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I didn't do my push-ups today. Okay. They don't want to study that. They can blame. It's easy to blame it on a call.
Right.
It's easy to blame it on a call. And we can treat those. We can treat those the same as we can say you're in the wrong t-shirt.
Nice.
You're in the wrong t-shirt. You need to put that right t-shirt on. Oh, well, he must be dealing with a lot of stress because he runs a lot of calls. He's probably seen some bad stuff. No, he's tired of you jacking with him.
Yeah,
he is tired of you jacking with him.
Chronic exposure to the toxicity of bad leadership. Yep. Dude, I love it.
And
man.
the more we said it the other night, I think Shane brought it up, and I know I know his whole story and he knows mine, but it seems that the go-getters, the ones that don't sit on the sofa and watch TV all day, this always just chapped my butt, man. So you take a guy, his whole career, he does nothing but show up for work. Okay. He shows up for work. He watches TV. He goes on the calls when the bell rings, does the absolute minimum, doesn't make any waves. And man, he sails through his career. Nothing, no issues and all. You got a guy that's volunteering to teach at the academy for recruits. He's serving on the apparatus committee to spec out trucks, going on trips, paying for his own training elsewhere, coming back and volunteering to train the battalion and all that stuff. That dude slips one time, something minor, and it's a huge incident in the organization. This guy gets the book thrown at him, or they get moved to a crappy assignment because they're just too motivated. They're too motivated. And you have to realize that if you're that guy, and not everybody who's highly motivated is doing the right thing. So I'm not saying that. There are some highly motivated jerks out there. But if you're in it for the right reason and you're trying to make folks better, and you're doing those things, you shouldn't be attacked. You should be like, hey man, we need to fan the flames on this guy.
100%.
We need to crank that fan up and blow that oxygen in there. Let's give that guy a day off to go to this class instead of taking vacation. Heck, let's pay for his training class. Let's give him a little incentive because he's making our organization better. And unfortunately, and I'm telling you, I got a big network. There are a lot of people out there that are just like, man, I don't even want to get promoted. I just want to retire. I just want to finish my time out and retire. And they'll transfer to some, slip station and just kind of chill for their last 5 years when they could really be doing some good stuff. And it's because of bad culture, bad bosses.
I try not to interrupt you when you're on a roll like that. That was a beautiful. I didn't want to mess up the sound bite by me talking on it, because I'll use it later for hyping the class. First question of the night coming out. Westbrook says, "How do you motivate those that used to be but are no longer because of bad interaction? Because of what you're talking about, how do you fire them back up?" That's not an easy
man. Nothing I like better than a team of misfits, man. You got to look for those sleepers. And, if you have any say so on your crews, man, find those people and identify them and just invite them in. Just invite them into your circle. Let them play ball on your team.
Nice.
If they're at another station, then, find out what makes them tick. I remember I had a guy that I got a guy in my battalion who was he was a lieutenant at training, and we had a major budget cut, and he ended up getting demoted because they did away with positions. Had nothing to do with his performance. And so one of the things that he was doing was like the drivers training, and he was doing some hose training and all that stuff. So the first day he was there, I went to him and I was like, man, I'm sorry, you got a raw deal, man. You worked hard and you made lieutenant, and then now you're back as a driver. But I'm glad to have you. And as a matter of fact, it's coming up on our yearly time for us to do our host training. Are you interested at all in like heading that up for me? So immediately I'm trying to get him in the game.
Bought back in, yeah.
It sounds corny, but back to one of the old 80s classics, Top Gun. Goose dies in an accident. Maverick doesn't want to fly anymore. And what do they say? Get him up, get him flying.
Get him back in the air, yeah.
He won't engage. Get him back up. I want him back up there flying. So, you gotta welcome people in and find something. What was their passion? Was it elevators? Was it hose? Was it engines or whatever? And go ask them some questions about it. Start up a discussion and then slowly bring them in. Slowly bring them in with that little carrot. They don't have to know what you're doing, but man, people want to be valued and people want to contribute more so than they want to just be a slug. And you got to find out what their value is. Even, I've been at some firehouses with 12, 15 people, and somebody's always the cook. Somebody's always the go-to guy for this. And the cook, may or may not be like the best go-to guy on the fire ground or whatever, but guess what? He's appreciated for his skills and his contributions, to the team. In some cases, it may be your best guy on the fire ground is the cook or what have you. But find out what people can contribute and then let them freaking contribute it.
Love it.
That's where people get hung up, is they're not allowed to do the thing. I've heard it so many times. Man, we got great guys, but we just don't utilize them. Freaking utilize them.
Beautiful.
Say yes. Say freaking yes when they say, hey, I was thinking about doing this. All right, how can I help you? What can I do to help you?
Love it.
Find the junkyard with the cars. Find the junkyards with the cars to cut up. Go to Home Depot, get the surplus doors that are damaged so you can build a door. Whatever it is, you can support them. And especially like a battalion chief, man, that's your job. That's your job, is to provide support to those company officers, not just to tell them what to do every day. Find out what makes them tick, get them engaged, and get them moving. And I know everybody knows this. The slowest stations are the last ones to have their reports done, the last ones to have their hydrants done, the last ones to have their building inspections done. The stations that are running 20, 25 calls a day, first ones to have their hydrants done. How do they have time to do it, man? It's because they got momentum. They're moving. They're not stagnant. They're not on life support, sitting there, watching the same old movies every day, Jerry Springer. So get people moving, get them moving. Battalion training, dispatch them to one station and do a ladder drill. Just get people moving, man. It's not so important exactly what they're doing, but build some momentum.
Love it, man. You're on a roll. You're on a roll, Chief. You're on a roll, Chief. You're bringing it, man. I love it. Another question coming at you. A few years back, our full-time staff and command staff had a sit-down with our chief to clear the air about some issues. Now, this is coming from Jim Platt. He said he quickly took it as a personal attack, not a professional intervention. How do we, the fire service, do this without it becoming personal and stay professional?
Well, the main way is to not ever let it get to that level where you got to have a special meeting. Anytime it goes formal, it's not going to be super productive. I definitely learned this as a union president with like our city council. If the first time the council heard about my issue was when I made remarks in the public comments, then I pissed a lot of people off because they felt like they were blindsided with stuff. So I had to learn how the system works. The system works where you find people away from that environment, or either you schedule a meeting with them in their office one-on-one so you can be candid and frank and you can go through the issues and you give them pre-warning. So somebody needs to be talking to that fire chief, whatever. And I know it's hard because, people love yes men. They love to appoint people that, do this all the time. But you need to have that chief's ear, man. When's the last time the person who asked the question invited that fire chief to dinner at the firehouse?
Right.
Invite that fire chief to dinner at the firehouse. Don't attack him. Man, it's hard being a fire chief. It's hard being a fire chief. There's some great ones and there's some bad ones, just like everything else. Get him to your station. Sit down at the best place in the world to negotiate peace treaties is the firehouse kitchen table. Cook a great meal. Don't even talk about anything except the meal and some calls you've been on until you get dinner finished. And then, pour the coffee, whatever it is, and sit there and start talking. And, you can't just go in on full attack. And the younger you are, the more passionate you are, the more you go in on full attack because you can't help it. But you got to ease your way in. You're like, Chief, tell us, what's your background? How did you come up? And what were the problems when you were a firefighter? And then, what? He's going to say everything that's going on in your organization right now. He just doesn't see it. And then you're going to be like, well, you know what, Chief? We're experiencing those same things today. So.
I love it, man. It's solid advice. Yes, go ahead.
Some people are going to take everything personal, and that's just their personality. But more people are going to be defensive if you're in a room with 10 people telling you everything that's wrong with what you're doing, versus that one-on-one time at the station, that time after a call or whatever. If it goes formal, it's just like going to the council meeting and asking for something, and it's the first time that they've heard it. So, send them emails, tell them you want to talk. Everybody says they have an open door policy. Go talk, but, bring a couple solutions with you to the problem. They might not be feasible, but at least you're not just in there complaining, because everybody hates the guy that just complains all the time. Absolutely. Even if it's a great guy, and you're just, oh, this sucks. This is horrible. You get down on everything. So do the old trick. everything is about relationships.
Love
so you got to build a relationship with that fire chief. You got to build a relationship with the deputy chief. You got to build relationships with everybody. And one way to do that is invite them into your firehouse.
I love it, man. That's beautiful. Beautiful relationships, and keeping it out of becoming formal. The first time they hear about it's formal. I'm just sitting here repeating what you say because you got me fired up. I love it. Okay, now then, we're already at 1 hour tonight. I don't know how much actual conversation we had the first time we went around, but do you want to cover a couple more topics? Should we start moving on?
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever you got, man.
I want to hear
good.
about FDIC H.O.T, man. FDIC. I know you just came back from Indy getting ready, but talk to me about FDIC and the hands-on training.
So it is a beast. We're at around 27 classes of hands-on training, which is unheard of for any conference. It is just incredible. The amount of commitment that FDIC puts into the hands-on training. Contrary to some popular belief, it does not make money. The hands-on training is a investment in firefighters training. We try our best to minimize the loss, of course, because it is a business. The conference, of course, makes money. That's what it's a trade show and it makes money. But the hands-on training part, all the way back to its inception with Bill Manning and the 4 or 5 classes that were taught in the parking lot. They called it Hot Tuesday or something like that that first time, and everything was right there in the parking lot. And then it started expanding a little bit, and so to make that work, it takes an army, and there's a full group of local folks. I think there's probably like 30 or 40 people on the local planning team from all the townships, and then of course Indianapolis. But you got Wayne, Lawrence, Pike, Decatur, Fishers, and the list just goes on. There's probably 20 departments involved in FDIC, and just the H.O.T itself. We put together a logistics team that ends up being about 30, 35 folks that are just making deliveries, driving trucks, dropping off supplies, helping with setup. Yeah. And now we're training as far as 30, 40 miles out of the city, and so just think, you call in on the radio and you need a couple extra saw blades for the afternoon. That may be a 2.5 hour round trip, for that guy to get in that truck and go. So there's a lot of coordination. We also have to deliver food to the sites. So we're delivering boxed lunches to the sites. Those lunches get into us about 9 o'clock every morning. They have to be sorted by class, by numbers, and then turned around. So it is pretty much a 10-month operation. I'd say we get about 2 months of downtime, and then we're right back at it. Back to planning. The instructors are phenomenal. I mean, just a great group of guys. We always look forward to seeing them when they come in, and we're always looking for new instructors too. One of the questions I get all the time is like, well, how can I get a H.O.T class? Well, you need to design a H.O.T class for FDIC. It's very hard to take your class that you're teaching all the time to 20, 25 students and bring it to FDIC because you're teaching it for 16 hours. And we go, okay, well, you got 4 hours and you're going to have 50 students.
Oh, wow.
And you're like, and you're like, well, I need 38 instructors, and you're like, no. So there's a balance of how you make it to where it works for the conference. And remember, it's the instructor conference. That's one thing people forget. It's kind of become the fire service conference. It's the fire department instructor conference. So nothing pleases me more than to see a proposal that is teaching people how to teach.
Beautiful.
It's one thing to teach a class, but the intent is to train instructors, not just have a fire conference. That's the whole the whole purpose of it, even when you're proposing a classroom or whatever, is like, how is an instructor going to use this? Is it just new information that I'm putting out there, something new, or am I teaching almost like a train the trainer?
Right.
That's a buzzword. Everybody wants to take the train the trainer class, right? Yeah. So that's stuff that we want to see, a lot more of. Beautiful. But we'll see about 3,000 a day, I guess, students in HOT. Buses. We have to bus them to the site. We have to do everything. So Ted Moore is my right-hand man out there from Wayne Township as a battalion chief, and he is on site locally. So he's the person that gets, when an instructor puts in that they need, 12 steel doors and $5,000 worth of lumber and all that. You just multiply that by 27 classes and all, and he's actually on the ground getting all that stuff to our warehouse and our yard so that we can get it delivered in a very short window. We start delivering like on Thursday and Friday. The guys start setting up on Saturday and Sunday. HOT is Monday, Tuesday. We pick everything up Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday. And a lot of that stuff has to go back to the exhibitors. And this year we're up just not the stuff that we own or that we are buying for the conference, but there's $3.7 million worth of equipment that comes through us to get distributed out to the guys.
Wow.
That does not include all the local fire engines and fire trucks and staff and all that stuff. That is just products, simulators, air packs, smoke machines, you name it. It's all coming in from the vendors. I think there's a mannequin that the active shooter class is using that's something like $65,000.
Oh, wow.
For that mannequin.
Holy crap. What's that?
They got a couple of them. Yeah.
Does it walk around on its own?
It moves.
Oh, wow.
No, but it moves and it reacts. You actually inject drugs and it knows if it's the right dose, and it's unreal. It's hooked to a computer, and it takes like a team to run it, but it comes from the military, so it's pretty high speed stuff.
No doubt, man. Okay, that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna throw at you incident command. One of the last topics, incident command, sexy topic. I will say that, incident command. So, Chief David Rhodes, what do you have to say about incident command?
If all you do for incident command is have your folks take the NIMS classes, you're not teaching them how to manage a fire.
Beautiful.
They're not bad classes. Obviously, they're good theory. They're good structure. I definitely am totally into the whole type 1, type 2, type 3 command team stuff. And that's definitely missing in a lot of departments, the knowledge of how to run those big prolonged incidents. But just doing NIMS does not teach you anything about how to manage a fire. So you need specific training in how to manage the type 4, type 5 incidents. And you need a lot of repetition. We talked about the simulation stuff. That's really the only way to get a lot of repetition in, because you can't just go out and burn houses all the time. But what you can do is you can integrate command into the stuff you're doing. So let's say you're running recruit school drills. Can't there be a battalion chief there running command at the same time? Let the battalion chief run it like it's a fire.
Nice.
Practice. Had a fire chief one time. He came to me when I was kind of the command guru, after some of the others had retired and stuff. That was sort of my thing. And he said, how do we increase our command presence? And I said, well, we got to train our incident commanders.
Right.
If you want to increase your command presence, we got to train them and get them practicing and get them used to it and all. And unfortunately, he said, well, let me tell you what I've done. I've ordered all the chief's white turnout gear.
To increase the command presence.
And I said, I said, Chief, that increases the command appearance, not the command presence. So again, back to the t-shirts.
I love it.
It's all about what you're wearing, and yeah, it's a tremendous subject. There's not a lot out there other than you got Blue Card, which is a pretty popular system, and I know the guys. I think it's phenomenal, but you get mixed. We did Blue Card and it screwed us all up. Well, Blue Card gives you the concept, and they even tell you right in the paperwork. It's like, build your own scenarios and make it your own system when you take it back. When you take the trainer class, you can't just take Phoenix's pictures and put them in Atlanta or Charleston or Boston. It was developed for their system. The concept is the same across command. They're teaching you a concept. They're teaching you how to think and how to manage an incident. But if all you do is take the canned program and use their exact terminology, and it's not your terminology, then of course you're setting it up to fail. So again, it depends on. You can't just have a person running the simulation that's going to say 10-4 after you make every decision, good or bad. So I love doing fire simulations. Me and my training partner there, Brent Hollander, we're going out to Summerville, South Carolina, to do 3 days of it with their company officers. And we're going to put each one of their company officers through probably more fires than they will have in 10 years, each one of them.
Right on.
And so we're going to be developing, and we record it. We record it so that they can have it. They can critique themselves after we leave, and they can listen to themselves. And what you find is you think a lot more than you say when you're in command. And so when you actually have the tape of yourself, then you're like, oh, well, I thought I told them to search.
I was wildly unclear.
No, you never assigned it.
Locally, yeah. No,
yeah,
100%.
You never assigned it. And
That's
so
awesome.
It's invaluable. But you got to get in and to borrow the blue card term, you got to get the sets and reps in, or you're never going to be good at it. And I've seen it succeed. We did it in Atlanta. That's how I started doing it. Was me and Brent put these simulations together. And again, we always had it where we could change it to match whatever you did. But we took a couple of guys that were just horrible on the radio, very nervous and stuff. And by taking our time with them, we didn't turn them into the greatest incident commanders or company officers, first due folks that they were, but we got them to where they were comfortable and could function. And our goal was, man, if we can get them to do a good size up and get the first line, dude, success. They don't have to be able to run it all the way till the chief gets there. If they can just do that initial 2 or 3 minutes and make those decisions, then we're going to be golden. And they did. All of them ended up getting promoted.
Well, it's right back to your quote from Patton earlier. A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan next week. I mean, you're tied.
And I didn't say that was from Patton. So you are astute on your reading.
Sorry. No, I do. I'm a huge fan of it.
It was from Patton.
Yes, sir. But absolutely. And then Smoothbore Cartel chimed in and said, ICs are just like babies. When babies are hungry, they cry. Feed the IC information, and he will not cry so much on the radio. So,
that's a good one. I mean, you're only as good as the company officer, so you need to spend a lot of time on the front end training those company officers. What is it you need to know?
Beautiful.
What is it? And you have to also tell those folks what you don't need to know.
Oh, that's that's huge.
I watched an academy class, and they were doing a search class, and the guy goes in and he's like, I'm feeling the wall. I'm moving to the right. I've moved 5 feet. I got a window. I got a corner. And they're just talking so freaking much you can't even think, man. Right. And it's confusing. It's like, hey, man, you don't have to talk that much. Just, take a breath. And the other thing is you have to be patient, because if you give a company assignment and, you're like, hey, man, get a line to the 3rd floor apartment and stuff, you can't turn around 30 seconds later and say, what's your progress?
Right.
I mean, you got to give them time to work. And there's nothing, I know, because I was a company officer, there's nothing worse than being asked a lot of questions.
Oh, yeah.
And you're trying to work and you're like, where's a freaking radio? You know?
That's when that radio has that malfunction when you're inside.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've been there. I've done it a time or two.
All right.
I've done it a time or two.
I love to
repeat your message.
Yes.
It's garbled.
I love to ask the guests, because I love reading, book or books to suggest that you believe firefighters should be reading. Doesn't have to be fire related, but just what do you think firefighters should be reading?
Well, probably top on my list would be Servant Leadership by Greenleaf. It's a big, thick book, but Robert Greenleaf, there's actually a Robert Greenleaf Foundation and Society. He passed away a long time ago, but it's actually in Indy. It gives you the foundation for servant leadership. And I tell everybody, there's a reason they call it the fire service.
Nice.
It's a service we provide. And, we're there to buy people another birthday, another anniversary. We're in the people business. And if you don't have that in you, then you're never going to get the rest of the stuff. You might have the baddest training company in the world and all that stuff, but if you're not doing it to make people better so that they can serve the people of the community, then you're doing it for your own ego or whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe you're doing it just to make money or whatever it is, but you got to have that passion. You got to understand that it's a service. So the servant leadership part is huge. Whether you're paid, it doesn't matter if you're paid, you can still be a servant leader in the community. And the best community service, while I'm on this horse, the best community service program that a fire department can have is the best trained, best equipped firefighters in the community.
Boom. That
is their community service, because nobody else is there. There's only one fire department usually in each community. They don't get a choice of who they're going to call. They don't get to call the neighboring department or whatever. They get whoever's on duty today and the closest station. So if they're not the best trained, best equipped, then you're selling them short.
Beautiful.
Because they don't have a choice. They got a choice on pretty much everything else, but they don't have a choice on who they get on
Jump
a fire
on
call.
that horse.
So that's the best community service there is.
I love it. You can get on that horse anytime. Okay.
Yeah.
Servant leadership.
Another one. Servant leadership is one. Another one of my favorites, and I'm not good with authors and titles and all. I read all this stuff and it kind of goes into a gumbo, and I don't know exactly where it all comes from. But man, you'll know the book. What's the Navy SEAL that
Extreme Ownership?
That wrote the book? You can't hurt me.
Oh, okay.
You can't hurt me.
Goggins.
Yes. Oh, phenomenal story, phenomenal book. And the thing is, it's like, it's good to read, but that book is like, get off your ass and go do it.
Yes.
It's like, don't just keep reading about it. Get out there and do it. Get out, whatever it is you want to do, get out there and do it, man. So that's another one of my favorites. Of course, I have to give Miss Judy a shout out. She has a book that she wrote about smoke divers, what the best firefighters in the world can teach you about leadership. And she basically has been sort of embedded with us at each class for, gosh, I guess she's probably 10 years at least. And she turned that into a book that's applicable to business. But it's just applicable to life. It's about how we run the smoke diver program. And,
nice. Is that the
it's
title?
A good one.
What's the best
She has several.
What the best firefighters in the world can teach you? Okay. About leadership? Okay.
Yeah. What the best firefighters can teach you about. And it's Judy Glick Smith. Judy Glick Smith. Okay. Is the author on that one. I love all the military I've probably read 20 patent books. They're great. And just for fun reading stuff, man, I love anything Mark Twain wrote.
Nice.
And also I like the short stories and stuff too. The Boyd book, I think it's just called Boyd, the fighter pilot that changed the art of war.
Right.
And it is by, he was an AJC reporter, Robert Gorham.
Nice.
Phenomenal. It's a phenomenal introduction into Boyd. It doesn't have all the papers, it references them, but they're out there on the internet. All the essays, patterns of conflict, and servant leadership. Greenleaf has a ton of essays too, and his book is all those essays put in together. And he even talks about personal servant leadership. He talks about servant leadership as an organization, even, and how these big corporations, if they don't have a purpose other than just making money, that they don't last.
Right.
So you got to have some purpose that there's got to be a reason you're making that money, and that's a big sore subject with a lot of folks, with all these companies that have these super wealthy CEOs that are breaking the banks. The employees are making $20,000 a year and they're making 16 million.
Yeah, billion.
So why are you making that 16 million or billion or whatever? What are you doing with it to make society better? So
solid, man.
So yeah, those are good ones. I don't know. Heck, Brindisini Command. It's a great one.
No, it's hard to knock.
Just to get the basics.
Yes.
Yeah, just to get the basics. Oh, and then I haven't finished reading it yet. But my buddy out there at the Colony,
Scott Thompson,
his book, Scott's new book is phenomenal.
Functional Fire Company.
Functional Fire Company.
Oh,
yes,
one of my
definitely
favorites.
Get that one. Yeah, get that one. That one's a good one. And I like the Nicholas Papa ventilation book, because he took a lot of the UL stuff and kind of explains it somewhat science for dummies like me, sort of like that. But there's a lot of great. It's just solely on ventilation, so it's pretty good. Yes. And for those fire chiefs that are looking for ventilation props, and I teach this in the class, every fire station should have either a Komodo Joe or a green egg, because you can teach ventilation with those things. They're about $1,000 grill, but every fire station should have one of those, and you should be able to justify it in the budget as a ventilation simulator.
As a training
bottom
prop.
damper is the front. Yeah, bottom damper is the front door. Top damper is the roof. You open the front door and you open the roof, and you don't do anything else, and the grill gets as hot as it can possibly be. Shut the door, shut the roof, temperatures go back down. It's a great training tool.
Love it.
And it cooks some great steaks.
Nice steaks at the same time. I've never done the green egg, so I have to check it out. All right.
Oh, man, phenomenal.
Chief David Rhodes, there's a thing.
What else we got?
It's called the 5 Questions for Firefighters. It's now known as the next 5 Questions for Firefighters. There are 5 questions where there are no correct answers. The answers are completely your opinion, and the points are arbitrarily assigned by me. So, Chief David Rhodes, are you ready for the next 5 questions for firefighters?
Ready.
Okay. Question number 1. What single characteristic makes the difference between a run-of-the-mill firefighter and the top-tier, go-to, badass firefighter?
Well, there's 2. There's not one. Character and competence. Character and competence are a must. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to have strong enough character not to screw people over, not to step on folks, to help folks along the way. And if you have those, then you're going to create trust. And we've said relationships are the key to everything. So that's going to allow you to have the relationships that are not only going to make you better, but it's going to make all the people around you better.
Brother, that might be the
character and competence.
Character and competence build the relationships, build trust, and I don't think you could have melted it down any better. I give you max points 100% for being super succinct and right to the point, like instantly, man. I love that answer. Absolutely love that answer. Number 2, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice as a rookie, what would it be?
Don't complain so much about stuff that you can't control. Golly, I wanted to solve all the fire department problems early on, and I should have just been focused on my station, myself, and not worried about the department as a whole, because it was too big of an elephant to eat. It caused a lot of indigestion, a lot of grief, and so, man, just enjoy what you can of the firefighter life at the station, and make your station the absolute best in your department. Don't worry about the rest of it for a while. Once you make chief, then it's a whole nother story, but just worry about your little bubble.
It's beautiful, man. And here's the deal. I try really hard not to give people max points just because they give good answers or a decent answer. One of my favorite books in the world is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So when you said don't complain so much, that's not a great answer. When you said don't complain so much about things outside of your control, dude, that just threw it into the stratosphere. 100%. Control what you can control. I love that answer. Max points 100%. Number 3, what?
I'll flub one. I'll flub one in a minute.
We've talked a lot about what you like to do in training, but here we go. What is your favorite training drill? I think you kind of touched on them earlier, but go ahead. Favorite training drill, you have to pick one.
Oh, absolutely. The SCBA drill that we talked about earlier. That is right now, that's my favorite. As far as just something that you can put together. Now, I love the fire attack, search, the big stuff we do at smoke divers, but as far as just a drill you could do at the station or you could do anywhere, is that get people proficient with the SCBA, get them to where they can put that thing on in 20, 30 seconds and be breathing air, all suited up, then start throwing in the kinks, start throwing in the bypasses are open, the straps are tight. There's stuff, you don't have to tie them in a knot and all that stuff. You don't have to get crazy with it, but just create problems and then watch them master the sounds and the stuff until they can go from a sabotaged air pack to fully ready to go in like 45 seconds. Maybe they can do it normally in 25 or 30, but if it's sabotaged, they can still recover. And that's what makes a good firefighter, right? Nobody does everything perfect. It's how you recover when something happens that makes you good. So, man, I love that one. Pop it. Do it every day.
I don't think you could, like, half of this scrap has been your philosophy on teaching and drilling, and I love you already answered this question before we even asked it. So you get max points on number 3, and I'm not trying to be soft on you, but
that's the wizard.
Literally,
that's the wizardry.
The future sight. But literally, half the scrap was about drilling. So how could you not? I think it'd be unfair. So, number 4, what mistake have you learned the most from in your fire service career?
Not building those relationships with the highest levels of the organization. Just especially early on, getting frustrated, mad, and not wanting to be around them. The mucks, and not all of them were of great character and stuff, but I could have done a lot more to get to know them that would have helped both of us. So especially when I was union president, it was very adversarial. I didn't want it to be adversarial, but if somebody won't meet with you, they won't meet with you. So you got to do other means. But again, playing all that out in public versus taking my own advice now that I gave a little while ago of trying to, reach in the back door and establish some type of relationship. That would be the biggest, is ignoring. Like, if you think of who you don't like in your department right now and then just ignoring them, that's a mistake. You need to put the effort in, try to build a relationship. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then you can still say they're a piece of crap. But if you don't at least try, then you never really know. And you got to think, man, at some point, those folks were in the station, you know, and they were thinking like you hope. So you got to figure that out. So yeah, I probably went on the attack a little bit too early, especially in my union president days, by going to the media. But you know, it's all I had. It's all I had to do. I didn't know any better at the time.
Sure.
I was just a youngster.
And you learned. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Love it, man. Number 5, heavy fire and searchable space. Would you rather be assigned to the nozzle or first in on VES?
Oh, VES.
Easy answer.
I mean, I love my time on the truck, but the hose is a boat anchor. There was nothing that pleased me more than jumping in there, getting in, and then whether we went through a window or a back door or whatever it was. And again, in my younger days, I love hearing them coming up to that front door, coming out of the black hell with my hook in my hand and grabbing that guy that was on the nozzle and go, "Hey, follow me, it's back here."
Love it, man.
And they're like, "Where did he come from? Where did he come from?" Well, I already knocked out 2 bedrooms, and now I'm coming to get you so you can put out the fire.
Love it, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's just me. And the thing is, I mean, that nozzle is so freaking important, but I like to be free. I like to be free and mobile. Again, it's kind of like small unit tactics versus, you know, bringing artillery. And if you gotta lug that freaking cannon around, you gotta have it. I mean, it makes the incident. You gotta have it. It's like the most important piece. But I just didn't like having to pull that boat anchor around the house.
There is no wrong answer there, but I love the passion of your answer, and I love VES, and so max points on number 5. And there it is, the next 5 questions for firefighters according to Chief David Rhodes. So there it is in the books. Officially, it took 2 days and like 4 restarts, but officially we have 132 scraps in the books. Chief, if someone wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do so? Get in touch with you or anything you want to plug or talk about?
Yeah, man. Chief David Rhodes on Facebook. You can follow me there and send me a message. My email is Rhodes, RHODES, consultants, CONSULTANTS, at gmail.com. And be glad to answer any questions, follow up. I think I'm on all the other stuff too, Instagram and all that, but I will literally tell you if I've checked a message on Instagram once, I may have checked it once, but man, just go to the Smoke Diver website. My email's on there. You can contact me through there, or phone a friend.
Love it. Love it. There it is. FirehouseVigilance.com. Go there. Support the scrap. All shirts and merch. The new order of hats just shipped. They're supposed to be in by Saturday, so all the hats should be back in stock. We'll see what colors. South Texas Professional Firefighters Conference, April 11th and 12th. It's the next place I'm going to be. Live Oak, Texas. It's going to be an amazing time. Keynoting out the gate, emceeing and introducing everybody, but there's going to be a live scrap coming up on location there in Live Oak, Texas, interviewing everybody that's going to be there, which is Todd Edwards, Dennis Laguerre, Jacob Johnson, Mo Davis, Clyde Gordon, Kyle Romagus, Howard Reinwald. They're all going to be live and answering your questions, so that's going to be a good time. Chief David Rhodes officially closed out the scraps for March, and so coming up to kick off April, Mega Scrap Bravo, Jim McCormick, Basil Ibrahim, and Rob Ramirez doing nothing but talking about Mayday and RIT, and so I'm super excited for that. That's next Tuesday on the 5th. So that's everything. We officially got it done, Chief. We officially got it done. So thank you for being an awesome guest. Everybody out there, remember.
Absolutely, man. It was fun.
Thank you, sir. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tone stays silent. Unless it's burning, stay safe out there. Thanks for listening to the Weekly Scrap. Please subscribe and please share. We'll see you at the next episode.